foremost, I rise giving praise to the great God of the universe of law. I give honor. I give honor. I said I give honor to his noble, illustrious prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And I said it once, I'm going to say it again. Allah is the energy that allows your heart to constantly pump. You can call that energy whatever you want. In the Moorish Science Temple of America, we call that force Allah. You ain't got to plug your heart in. You ain't got to wind it up. It is. Because the law say be, and it is. That force that keep it doing like that. You see that? Just like that. We call that force Allah. Now after that, you call it up you want. We give praise to that force. You feel me? We give honor to his noble, illustrious prophet. That his will came in tune with that force, which made him divinely prepared before he even entered into this realm. But he still had to work to bring his will in tune, and he did that. And now you have the Moorish Science Temple of America by the will of Allah. And if it wasn't for the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, there'd be no me. Because I'm telling you, as I say it again, I will be somewhere else doing something else. And that something else wouldn't be too good. So with that, I give honor to our Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I give honor to the forerunner of the Prophet, the original RBG. The original RBG, Marcus Garvey. See, we know what that RBG stands for. We know who's the leader of that RBG. All that RBG today, Marcus Garvey wouldn't have time to play with that stuff. He was too busy trying to get these ships out of dock and out of port. He was too busy writing manuscripts. He was too busy uniting us from coast to coast, from shore to shore. He had time for that RBG foolishness that we see today. So we give honor to the forerunner of the prophet that asked us, where are your great men? Where are your presidents? Where are your noblemen? Where are your good men? Where are your men of high standards? And the Prophet Noble Drew Ali come right behind it and say, here it is. But now it's you. And so today it brings us here today. You are the men of worth. You are the women of worth. You are the noble ones today. We're not taking no calls right now. Don't make me mute you. I'm going to mute you. I'm going to mute you. You are the noble men and the noble women of worth. You are. Nobody else. You. You watching me. You are. And tonight, we're going to show that that's who you are. Now, somebody in the chat said, hold up, rewind. Honor to Marcus Garvey. Woo! The true RBG. Now, somebody in the chat said, well, they said the Hebrews was targeted for slavery. Possibly. Not sure. Haven't done that research. But what research I have done is that the Moors conquered Europe, conquered Spain, and for revenge, they in turn conquered us. Let's call a spade a spade. It is what it is. The Moors, all throughout Europe, you see the coat of arms. You see the Moors. Not discounting anybody else perspective. But all throughout Europe, you see the Moors. We conquered all those lands. And in return for revenge, my studies have told me that we, the Moors, were targeted. And that's what we're going to address today, tonight, on Moorish World TV. If you want to learn something, stay tuned. Get a pen. Get a pen Get a piece of paper and stay tuned, because we're going to learn something today about who we really are, not who we assume ourselves to be. Now, after this, you can accept it or reject it. But today, we're going to talk about who we are and why we are in this condition today. It is by design. With that, I'm going to bring my brother Sharif Aniel Bey in the chat to introduce himself, give a brief introduction, and then we're going to just start the build. Let's go. Brother Sharif, good evening, my brother. Islam.
Islam, brother, man. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. He's loud and clear, brother.
Yes, sir. I want to first rise and give praise to Allah, Almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible. I want to give honors to his prophet, the last prophet in these days and times, my prophet and our prophet and the prophet of the world, but more specifically, the prophet to the fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nation in North America. And that's Prophet Noble Ali. I want to give honors to the forerunner, the Honorable Marcus Mosaic Garvey, who brought purity so that love could follow behind. I want to give honors to the Moorish Science Temple of America, past and present leadership. I want to give honors to my comrades in arms, Ali's men. I want to give honors to Moorish World TV. I want to give honors to the host, Brother Tahar Kabay. I want to give honors to all of the listeners and viewers today.
Islam, my brother. So what I'm doing right now, there, I'm actually getting a pen and a piece of paper.
Yes, sir.
Due to the fact that even me, Tahar Kabay, is planning to learn something today.
Brother, can I ask you a question real quick?
Yes, sir, my brother.
Or about it was a show. I saw a little bit of it. It was a show, a live stream, I believe, that was on Black News 102, where they had a brother, a scholar, on that they were interviewing. What was the brother's name?
Brother, you give me a second. I'm gonna look it up and I'm gonna give it to you in a few seconds. I can't think of it. It's Dr. Siraji, if I'm not mistaken. Something to that effect.
Brother said something really, really strong that I want to touch on a little bit later. But he said something really, really, really strong that I admired, that I want to definitely touch on.
Brother, with that being said, I want to give now listen, y'all can take this how you want to, but we in the Moorish Science Temple of America, we give honors where honors due. I want to give a big honor to the brother over there at Black News 102, Brother Sinetta. Because if you watch that interview, they said they called in and he opened the door and said, let's go. And these are bona fide PhD brothers, you know. Right. And these brothers really went in on some topics. And I got to give the brother honor. You know, I'm ready to choke him out on some issues. So at the same, I'm ready to choke him out on some issues. I got to give him a prop. Give him props on that. When a bona fide PhD come through and it's no shucking and jiving, no nonsense, no foolishness. They just dispensing information. And we got to give honor to that because that's what we strive to do. No shucking and jiving, just dispense the information. Let it put the cards on the table and you take it and play the game from there. It's up to you. But with that, brother, I'm gonna look him up and I'm gonna see what the brother name is, because the brother he went in on some topics, and even the detractors of the Moors could not detract him from the narrative in which he was demonstrating. But more, the floor is yours for a second. Handle your business.
Well, I mean, since we're on that particular topic, what we're talking about, the subject of this particular, show, I mean, one of the things that the brother said on the live stream when he was asked the question about those of our people here in America that want to identify, the phrase used, identify as Moors. And he said, what do you think about the Moors and, in general, I guess. And the brother's response, his first sentence was like powerful. His first sentence was, well, Moors are just Egyptians by another name.
Exactly.
Now what's so deep about that isn't so much that he acknowledged the fact, but what's deep and significant about that is that this man has a PhD. The man is very educated. very educated. So for him to make such a blatant outright statement of, yeah, well, when you're looking at the Moors, you're looking at not just custodians of Egyptian culture, you're looking at inheritors of Egyptian culture because they themselves were basically Egyptian diplomatic people.
One moment. My brother, give me our L. Can you mute your mic real quick, my brother? We gonna my Islam. But carry on, my brother.
So real quick, when we bring up
that's excellent. That's excellent.
But see what it presupposes something. It presupposes the fact that anyone remotely scholarly or remotely astute on these matters will not, cannot, and does not dispute this fact. You understand what I'm saying? Like, this is known in academia. I mean, we've done, you, myself, other people, I'll take myself. I've done lectures upon workshops, upon, presentations at universities, at other places, amongst all types of people, including Europeans who were not in favor of the ideal or the topic. And not one of them, with one exception, not one of them would dispute the fact that our people are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. There's only one group that claims scholarship that disputes this. Only one. We don't even have to name them. But every other field of every other academic circle, as it relates to this topic, does not argue, and either does not argue or openly agrees with it, bro. That's what was significant to me,
brother. And let's just call it like it is, because that's what we're gonna do. The scholars that don't agree with that are corner scholars.
Right.
Corner scholars. These are corner scholars. Not saying that you can't be a scholar from the corner.
Right.
But if you don't have the elements of the proper research,
right,
and if you don't have the elements, one thing, the proper discipline. Because being a scholar to me is a discipline.
Right. Brother, I'm glad you said that. It requires discipline. And you know what else it requires? It requires courage. Because the scientific method means that you investigate, you start with a hypothesis, something that may be true, as we say, belief. What man thinks perhaps is true.
That's
right? So you start with the hypothesis and you're like, okay, this might be true. Then what do? You test the hypothesis via experiment and observation. But to do it scientifically means that you have to do it knowing that it's possible that you might be wrong. Okay, so to take a particular hypothesis and then just presume this is true because you want it to be true, because you have an emotional attachment to that particular hypothesis, and then only search for information that backs up your hypothesis is antithetical to the scientific process. How we say it in the street is hustling backwards. That's what it is. It's not the scientific method. Scientific method means that you research, unreservedly, knowing that it's possible you may prove your own hypothesis wrong, and you have to have the guts, the intestinal fortitude to accept the results of honest research. It's just that simple.
And before I bring my brother Grimmy out there, that's why I have never, ever titled myself a scholar. The reason why I have never titled, I know some things. I know a little bit about a lot.
Right.
But I know a little bit about a lot, but I've never titled myself a scholar. You would never hear me say that, because those titles are just as precious to me.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Not as high, but precious. Prophet, angels, teachers, leaders, scholars. These are worthwhile titles, and those titles must be earned. And not only earned in academia, they must be respected by your peers.
Facts.
And also respected by those who aren't your peers that are true scholars, because you are disseminating facts.
There you go.
Period.
That's
and
right.
when you are corrected on what you thought was fact, you don't get emotional and all bent out of shape. Right. You make adjustments and corrections and you carry on.
That way you always win. That's if your intention is to search for truth, not to make yourself look like somebody. Exactly. If your intention is to search for truth, if my brother corrects me, if my enemy corrects me, then I still win.
That's right.
I thank him for that because I'm searching for truth. You know what I'm saying? I'm not grandstanding for somebody's camera. You know, so that's the positive of that. But you know, again, it's we and another reason why, and I'll just put this out there. Another reason why people say we don't say we're strong. You know what I'm saying? We don't do that. Other people may say that Ali's men is strong, that the Moors and the Moorish Science Temple of America are strong in their research. One of the reasons is because of what we just said. We apply the scientific method, meaning we challenge the very things that we're espousing. We challenge them ourselves. We don't babysit them. We don't cradle them. We challenge these very principles, which is why we have no problem standing on them.
Hey, brother, you know? I think I was talking to either Ali Bey or maybe Grimillion Ill, and I made a statement. I said the reason why that I am so strong and more science and I can't be moved is because I didn't believe in the little man from North Carolina.
Right.
I challenge everything
right.
that was set before me. Everything. Mm-hmm. Everything. And I have yet to really teach more science through the medium of YouTube or Facebook yet. Right. I haven't. Now, people that know me personally, they know my foundation in more science. You, Grimillion, Ali Bey, know my foundation most, but I have yet to really teach it through Facebook or YouTube. But I'm telling anybody, and this is anybody, everything that you can ask about the Moors, we heard it all before. We heard it all before. We've heard it all before. And a lot of it, we challenged ourselves before we heard it from somebody else.
That's fact. So and I want to say, brother, we're still, as you would say, I know you would say, because I'm saying it, we're still babies in this knowledge. We're still babies in it. And I have no problem admitting that. I don't claim proficiency, a great amount of proficiency in any of this. That's the truth. I'm still a baby learning this stuff. Every time we come up with, or we find something new, or we stumble upon something new about this, we see that our prophet was already there. That's the most amazing part to me. You know what I'm saying? That's the most amazing part to me. It's like, wait a minute. I'm learning new things, and I can go right back to that 64-page pamphlet and find it in there.
Before I bring, real quick, I'll bring my brother Grimillion in, brother. But this is the brother I was telling you about earlier, brother Sharif. His name is Mike Coeasy. If I'm saying it wrong, I'm sorry, my brother. He just put in the chat, it's 2:36 here, and I'm listening to my brother. This is the brother that we went and talked about the DNA and about his DNA and connecting him to, that's what I talked about you earlier. He's coming from France right now. This is big. This is what we're saying. And Mike, what you're about to hear today is basically what we talked about concerning your DNA test today. See, Moorish world, let me tell you, you have people that have taken DNA tests that have really connected them to the Moors. Right. But not only have it connected them to the Moors, it connected them to a specific geographical location. And we're going to get some of these brothers and sisters on the show. But with that being said, I have my brother Grimillion Ill. He's been chilling, waiting. Come on, brother. Come on in the chat. Introduce yourself and say a little something. Give something to the people. Let's get some fireworks and all that going on. They have targeted us for slavery, brother. What you got to say about that when you bring yourself through the chat? Let's go.
Islam, brother, man. Islam, brother Sharif Bey. Islam to all the brothers and Ali's men. But first, I like to rise giving praise to Almighty God, Allah, and honors to his holy and divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali, giving honors also to the forerunner, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and give honors to all leaders, past and present, all leaders of the Asiatic race in America. And with that, I say peace and I say love.
Peace, peace, my brother. So you know that the topic of the day is the Moors were targeted for slavery. So the
Right.
narrative is that this didn't just happen random. The narrative is that we were literally targeted, as when the police come into the hood and they say, that's the profile of a D boy. Let's get him.
Right.
Let's get him. Don't forget her. Now let's just wait and see how we gonna get them. And before you know it, central booking around the country is flooded. Weed charges, dime charges, some of them ain't did nothing.
Right.
So we're saying that, I'm saying that this what had happened in Spain and all of those conglomerates of Europeans that came together and participated in the slave trade. They said in literal basic English, they took over our lands, they took over our countries, they dominated our women. Yeah, we don't deny that the Moors went after European women at a time in history. Had concubines and all sorts of stuff. Our prophet teaches us that too. That's why Moors suffer slavery, for things like that. Now, not specifically that, but just not honoring the principles and the creeds and the ways of their foreparents. We lost our way, but nevertheless, the Europeans say they didn't took all of this stuff. And now we got a footing. And now they must pay. They must pay. Now, what I would like to do is bring my brother Sharif into the chat, because Sharif, he expounded on something a while ago as it relates to how the Catholic Church initiated or participated in the beginnings of the slave trade as it relates to the Moors. Now, this is something I want to say before my brother come in. When we speak about the Catholic Church, and I want you to hear Brother Sharif, I want you to hear Brother Sharif real good. And then Brother Grimion, I want you to hear them brothers real good. But when we speak of the Catholic Church, we must know without a doubt or contradiction that every church that is organized as we see it today is a derivative of the Catholic Church. I'm going to say it again. Every church that is organized as a church, Baptist, Lutheran, AME. Let me give a disclaimer. This is Brother Tahaka Bey talking. This is not the Moorish Science Temple of America talking. This is not No Grand Body talking. This is Brother Tahaka Bey talking. For the purpose of learning, I'm pointing out facts that may seem a bit harsh, and it may be sensitive to some people, but I'm only pointing out the facts, period. It's me talking.
That's why they call them Protestants more. And basically, you know, to segue in on that, just 1 second, that's why they call them Protestants. You know, the root of the word Protestant is protest. And basically, for all intents and purposes, all of the other sects of Christianity are basically Catholics in protest. And that's why they called them Protestants. And, you know, that's why Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, in order to resolve the problem, the men have led us to resolve the problem. you know, that's all that is need is time in a up-to-date library, and they'll learn that all of those particular sects that develop, you know, they're not opposed to the Catholic Church. You know, what they are opposed to, and this is not speaking radical against any groups, this is a matter of history. And, you know, the only thing that they are imposed to, if you will, because of the reforms of Martin Luther, is the infallibility of the Pope. But, you know, everything else is pretty much, for all intents and purposes, is based upon Catholicism. And, you know, with the exception of some of the Coptic churches and the other Orthodox Eastern churches that, you know, have a slight variation in high holy days and et cetera, et cetera. You know, all of the Protestants basically depend on the Roman Catholic calendar, if you will, and how the Roman Catholic Church basically dictates, if you will, what, when, where, and how high holy days fall. And the other Protestants fall in line with that because, you know, they believe in the efficacy of the basic principles of the Roman Catholic Church. They just don't believe in the infallibility of the Pope, if you will.
Exactly. And let me say, the reason why I point that out, is because when we get ourselves into these ways of life, with church groups, organization, we must know where they come from, and where they all are rooted, as you said, the separation in the Protestants or whatever from the Catholic Church. Now, the Catholic Church is at the root.
Brother, can I add a couple things?
I'm about to give it to you, brother.
But real quick, because I want to stay on this topic, because the brother hit on something, you know, brother Grimion,
come on with it. Come on, brother.
Grimion hit on something really deep. How what you really have with the Protestant groups are they're basically Catholics in protest. And yes, they, you know, outside of a few things, they have adopted the core of the Catholic ideology.
That's right.
Now, it includes what the brother said, but it also includes the whole idea of the Virgin Mary. It also includes
that's right.
the whole idea of Jesus being a physical man born of a spirit God as a father. It also includes Jesus was never married. It also includes the exclusion of his wife. It also includes the whole issue of Jesus not having children when he did. These are all things that all of these groups, you know, the Protestant groups, adopted. And so these facts demonstrate that they are, in fact, what Brother Grimion said, they are just Catholics in protest. That's it. Now, I want to add something really quick, too.
Yes, sir.
To that whole thing about specifically about the whole decision at the Council of Nicaea. Because that's what it was. It was a political decision about Jesus, for instance, being deified, you know, in the way in which he was deified. Understand what was going on during this time. You know, Christ was deified in this case, you know, through the concept of a virgin birth. But the reason for this was very simple. Within the Greek and then later Roman psyche of those particular days, a deity could only be a deity if he was born from a virgin who had been impregnated by a god. We all know the story.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, yeah. So the worship of a man, such as Julius Caesar, for example, was nothing new at that time. A Roman aristocratic descent demanded an ancestry related to that of a god by the Greeks and Romans in those days. Julius Caesar claimed descent from Hercules. Mark Antony, he claimed this, sharing a common ancestry with Caesar, adopted, Dionysius, as his father. The Hellenistic world was pervaded with this type of thing. You understand? So it wasn't far-fetched. I mean, this was, this is just what it was. So the reason why they did that and decided that way in the Nicene Council was to satisfy the group psyche and the norms of that day for the people. That's what it was.
Exactly. Hey, brother, and again, before I let you go on,
Yes, sir.
before I let you go in,
Yes, sir.
I want to really put emphasis on that when you accept that
Yes.
as your savior to take you to higher elevated spiritual realms or forms and life after the whole theology, when you accept that, I want you to first listen to how these founding people of the Catholic Church initiated, participated, and sanctioned slavery. So, brother, can you start with that narrative for me, brother Sharif?
Oh, yes, sir, brother, man. Absolutely. I mean, wow. Real quick, I want to throw an extra a bonus out to everybody. I want to throw a bonus out to everybody. You know, like on the previous topic with the whole, you know, decision or the European, you know, fabricated Jesus, right? You know, it was out, you know, the Council of Nicaea. It was at this council that December 25th was decreed, you know, the birth date of Jesus, right? We all know that that's not the birth date, but during the rule of Roman Emperor Aurelian, the winter solstice fell in the year 274, or the year AD 274, on December 25th. That's when, on that day in that time period, that's when the winter solstice fell on. That day, December 25th. The emperor proclaimed that date the festival of the birth of the invincible sun. So Pope Julius I, trying to outdo him, then he was leading the Catholic Church, decided in 320 AD to adopt December 25th as the official birth date of Jesus. That's how that happened. So that, I just want to throw that out there as an extra bonus for people, you know. But now, you know, let's get on. Hold on, let me turn this camera on. All right. So now let's talk, and I want to preface it with a couple basic things, bro, this topic. First and foremost, right, you know, there's this persistent and stubbornly pervading idea amongst the conscious and the so-called conscious that somehow Moors in Morocco, that Moors are not Africans and Morocco is not in Africa. Well, it's the same thing, and I said this on April 10th. It's the same thing that Europeans do, the European imperialists do, when they talk about Egyptians and they call Egyptians white and they say Egypt is not a part of Africa. It's the same thing. I mean, you know, wow. But anyway, this whole thing about Moors being targeted for slavery. See, and that's another very, 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 and I'm just going to call it what it is, a very ignorant, you know, statement. It's a very ignorant, you know, presupposition that Moors, you know, were I mean, you know, it's crazy. It goes from, yeah, Moors had a hand in the slave trade. Yes, we did. And I say we as in even the very same people that are making the accusation.
That's
right. All the same.
That's right.
So yes, we did. You're sure, but check it, brother. It goes from Moors were involved in the slave trade to the Moors started the slave trade.
Yes.
That's crazy, right? But dialing it back to Moors were involved in slave trade, every African nation and every African kingdom.
Let me chime in real quick on that thought.
We're involved in slavery. Go ahead.
Let me chime in on that thought real quick. Hold it. I want you to keep going. You know what that made me think of when you said the Moors were involved in the slave trade?
Yeah.
But did the Moors design, did you say, or did they start the slave trade?
Yeah, now it went from Moors were involved in slavery to the Moors sold Africans in America as if they themselves are not Africans, right?
Right. But now check this out. That's just like we live in this crazy life, our people, of being gangsters.
Right.
Shooting up everything.
Right.
Who originated that?
Right.
In America.
Right.
In America, who originated running down on people, rat, rat, rat. And now guess what we be doing the song?
Right.
Rat, rat.
Right. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy.
But come on, brother. Carry on, brother.
So let's go. See, you know, and I want to bring this other piece up, and I'm going to tie the two together when we jump in, you know, about a lot of our people in the conscious community and the so-called conscious community that romanticize Africa as if it's one big nation, and it never was, you know, and at the same time, you know, they conflate the whole slavery issue, you know, in such a way that it's presumed insurmountable. So they only pay lip service to liberation, only pay lip service to freedom. When you start talking about putting one brick on top of another and putting some real work in, then it becomes, oh, the white man ain't gonna let you do that. Oh, well, the system isn't gonna let you do that. Oh, well, the system and the white man's gonna do this and da 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 da. And all of a sudden you got agents running around on social media. It's social media, people. It's social media. Stop it, you know? But anyway, this is how all of that ties together, people. The fact of the origin of the transatlantic African slave trade to the Western world was started as a result of the Moors being expelled from Spain and losing power in Europe. And the Europeans, via the Catholic Church, continuing their war of revenge and vengeance against Africans, who at that time, the African diaspora was referred to as Moors. It was their continued vengeful action against us,
that's right,
you too, that landed slaves from Africa into America. I demonstrated this on April 10th. We're going to pull up some of that same information and add to it. All right, let's go.
Islam. That's my big bro. My big bro goes in. Let's go.
So let's go. All right. First one. Matter of fact, let me just pull up the notes real quick. Let me just talk from the notes real quick. First and foremost, and this is just a quick primer for everybody. Matter of fact, hold on. I'm gonna give the people some references. Can you see? Can y'all see my screen? Get this book. It's called The Dogs of God: Columbus, the Inquisition, and the Defeat of the Moors by James Reston Jr. Get the book. Get the book. Another book, if you really want to know what's really going on with a lot of this stuff, get this book by Prince Michael of Albany. The Knights Templar of the Middle East, the hidden history of the Islamic origins of Freemasonry.
Yes, sir.
Get that one too. And again, see, researchers are researchers, right? I got a lot to learn as far as research goes, but you know, I do okay. I learned from some good people. Get this book. It seems like it has nothing to do with the topic, but it does. This book is called Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramids by Peter Tompkins out of the UK. Get this one too.
Islam, real quick. Everybody share this, man. Everybody share. Subscribe so you can get alerts, because Brother Sharif is putting up some good books. Please write them down. I'm telling you, forget all the shucking and jiving. Get the books and study a little bit. I'm telling you, you will be rewarded. And I just stopped him right there, because after he come down, he's going to pass the Grimmy on Hell, and that's another one. It's going to give you references and books. Get a pen and prepare to write this stuff down. Come on, Brother Sharif, let's go.
Absolutely, brother. Okay, here's the first thing, people. Very simple. Now let me start with the notes. Let me start with my notes, you know, that I put down just for this. Again, a big primer. You know, Moorish civilization in Spain and Europe, you know, the given date is 711 AD when Tariq ibn Ziyad crossed the Strait of Gibraltar into Spain, right? The fact of the matter is some people, it's taught that the Moors invaded Spain. The fact of the matter is they were requested, and it wasn't their first time there. That's the truth right there. I mean, we can go into detail on that, but that's another, you know, get the second book that I put up, and it'll give you more detail about that. You know, Moorish, and here's another thing. Yes, we civilized Spain and all of Europe from 711 AD to our expulsion in 1492. Number one about that is that Moorish civilization founded the Western Old World civilization. It founded the civilization you live in pretty much today. And it was founded upon ancient Egyptian culture, which was possessed by the Moors. We already talked about earlier about how the brother, on Black News 102, flat out said that the Moors were just Egyptians by another name. Let's go. The next thing I want to bring up is Moorish identity. Let's talk about that real quick. That in itself is a show, or maybe even a series. But understand that when we talk about Moorish nationality, and we talk about nationality in particular, there are two parts to nationality. One is ethnology. The other is politics. So there's political affiliation, and then there's ethnic affiliation. It's just that simple. So Moorish identity combined ethnicity and politics. Ethnicity, we're speaking about the ancient Berbers or the North Africans. You want to know more about that? Talk to our sister Dana Marnici or Rudolph T. Ware. Those are both scholars in that field. Now, the other end is politics. Now we're talking about the West Africans that were within the Imperial Confederation of the Moroccan Empire at that time. Shout out to our brother Ishmael Bey of Amin Ra Squad. Ishmael Bey posted recently a clip on his page on Facebook about the Senegalese who say themselves that they are Moors, and the only difference between us and them is the Atlantic Ocean. That's it. So we've got, in terms of Moorish identity, you've got a combined ethnology and political tie. That's why we say, why are we Moorish Americans? Because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. That descent nature can be ethnic or political or both, regardless of tribal affiliation. So what we're looking at during the time of the Moors civilizing Spain, your forefathers and mine, what we're looking at is the Moorish identity at that time reflected the African diaspora. There is only one group of people today that reflects that same or similar African diaspora, and that is the people in America of African descent. Plain and simple. Now let's move. All right, let me pull up this screen real quick. Can y'all see the screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. Truth about the transatlantic slave trade, people. This was long before the expulsion of, as a matter of fact, 50 years before the expulsion of the Moors from Spain. Before we go any further, let me touch on something that you mentioned, somebody mentioned in the chat. Understand that during this time period and even earlier, the people that followed what we would call today Judaism or Islam, the people that follow these were called the people of the book because they had a common theological and spiritual ancestry through Ibrahim or Abraham. So they were called the people of the book. The point being made is that many times and on many occasions, Hebrews and Moors were used interchangeably. Just had to put that out there. Anyway, let's look at this slide. Pope Eugene IV, he issued a papal bull called Ilias Qui in 1442. This papal bull licensed the Portuguese raids of the West African coast as a continuance of the Crusades. As a matter of fact, what they did is that they had initiated a new crusade against not just the Moors, but specifically the Moors that civilized and controlled Spain, that were run out or that were there at the time. That's the truth. And it granted full remission of sins to those that took part in any of the expeditions against the Moors. This papal bull developed the mindset that perceived the enslavement of Africans by the Portuguese as a continuation of the Crusades on behalf of Christendom. I suggest everybody gets the book, the very, very powerful book, The Atlantic Slave Trade by Professor Nazir Ahmed. Get the book. He says it flat out. As a matter of fact, we're still looking at the screen, right? I'll give a quote from him in that book, The Encyclopedia of Islamic History, The Atlantic Slave Trade. It is not commonly appreciated that the first target of slavery in West Africa were the Moors. A description of the first raids has come down to us through the writings of the Portuguese writer Azarara. I could read more, but you know what? I don't want to, you know, belabor the point, or actually, we want to belabor the point, but I just don't want to, you know, bore you with a ton of reading that you can do on your own. But you know what else you could do is just take a snapshot of the slide. Here's another book. This was another slide I used on April 10th. This was the title of the book, The Discovery of America, an Outgrowth of the Conquest of the Moors. Plain and simple. The discovery of America was a major part of the continued hostilities of European Christendom against the Moors. It was a military expedition to determine the extent of African dominions. Let's take a look at this right here. Shout out to my brother Kerry Allende Ill of Ali's Men in Virginia. He supplied us with this information because the brother reads fluent Spanish. This particular map is a map of the Americas, one of the oldest maps of the Americas, called the Carta Marina of Frisius from 1525. So this map was issued during and around the time of the Age of Discovery, which we're going to touch on in a second. This map is of interest as it is the sole instance available, that is, in which North America is called part of Africa. There you go. Christopher Columbus, when they said, now we all know why, they still insist on saying that Christopher Columbus discovered America, when we know he didn't discover anything. But the reason why they use the word discover is because it was done under the papal bull sanctioned, Roman Catholic sanctioned, Vatican sanctioned Age of Discovery or Doctrine of Discovery, which was nothing more than a seizure and an exploration of previously held Moorish dominions. In other words, African diasporic dominions. Understand this, people. When you hear the term Moorish from that time period, or Moroccan from that time period, it is talking about an African diaspora that was an empire. So it consisted of many different tribes and nation states on African soil. Understand that. And like I said, I want to reiterate, the only, social or communal complexion remotely similar to that diaspora is what exists today in America, our brothers and our sisters of African descent here in America. That is why in the prophet's words were so powerful, yet so simple. Why are we Moorish Americans? Because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. What I'm showing you here is how you actually got here. For the first time, for many of you have ever even heard the details on how the transatlantic slave trade got started. This is just the fact. Let's go. Next slide. Pope Nicholas V. He issued the papal bull Dum Diversus in 1452, which authorized Alfonso V of Portugal, listen close to this, people, to reduce any Moors to perpetual slavery, thus facilitating the Portuguese slave trade in West Africa. He also issued the bull Romanus Pontifex in 1455, extending to the Christian nations of Europe dominion over discovered Moorish territories during the Age of Discovery, and also encouraged the enslavement of native and non-Christian peoples in Africa and in America, all done as a continued prosecution of the Crusades against the Moors. 4 papal bulls, Ilias Qui Dum Diversus, Romanus Pontifex, and Inter Caetera, they became the foundation for what's called the Doctrine of Discovery, people. The global slave trade of the 15th and 16th centuries, the age of manifest destiny, or the age of imperialism, in other words, and which also a large part of was the colonization of Africa, and more importantly for us here, people, the social construct or caste system of the color code of race, which is racism, which peaked in development and use in America. I mean, man, people, that's what it is. The Doctrine of Discovery is the foundation. I want to repeat this. The Doctrine of Discovery was now understand what the Doctrine of Discovery is. The Doctrine of Discovery is the philosophy and ideology and actions in pursuance to that prosecute vengeful actions against the Moors. That's what it is. But the doctrine of discovery is the foundation of so-called European discovery of the New World and taking possession of former Moorish dominions. It is the foundation of manifest destiny. It is the philosophical foundation of the present day color code race classification. It is the foundation of racism, and therefore is the foundation of modern American civilization. Well, I'm gonna stop right there. I know there's probably questions or probably some other, people have some other thoughts or whatever, and I want to let my brother Grimion Ill get a little bit of this as well.
Absolutely. And brother, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at the chat and I'm gonna write down some questions, and we're gonna talk. We're gonna take a few minutes to take a few questions at the end of the show. Nevertheless, brother, you really, as we say in the Moorish Science of America, you used that hammer that time and you made it a part of every part. And I hope that people would take the time and listen long enough, take some notes, consider, empower yourself, and come to know and come to know that we are Moors without a doubt or contradiction. Now, the Moor, being a Moor doesn't give you superpowers. The Moors is not a cape that flies you off into the cosmos. The Moors, being a Moor, does not give you a bulletproof vest, and it doesn't stop bullets. It doesn't stop from police brutality. It doesn't, you don't go into the court, twist your hands up, throw your hands up and all that, and walk out for selling dope. You don't get out of traffic tickets by throwing signs and all that. The police. No. We're making a divine connection. Now, once you connect yourself to the Moorish nation, there's a divine connection that takes you all the way back to probably you will get lost, find yourself, and get lost and find yourself as you begin to trace yourself back. Because long as the law lives, man has lived. But that's for another show. But nevertheless, with that, let's bring my brother Grimion Ill in and let him expound a little bit. I know he's over there waiting to give us something to take us to the next level. Brother Grimion Ill, the floor is yours, my brother.
Islam, or
Islam,
all praises
my
be
brother.
to Allah. Indeed, to Allah. I'm here. I'm having just a little bit of technical difficulty and basically putting some things together more all at the same time. With that being Brother Sharif basically broke everything down that really needed to be broken down in that regard. And the topic of the show is, were the Moors slated for slavery? And the answer is absolutely they were slated for slavery. And I can do nothing more but add on to what the brother said. There's the word called the reconquista or reconquista, which is basically the reconquest. And as General Boabdil was pushed out of Spain, I just want everybody to see how these things connect, because General Boabdil of the Moors were basically pushed out of Spain and sent back into the interior of Africa by the Reconquista or the Reconquest by the European nations. And in 1492, as they were pushing the Moors out, which was the last defeat of General Boabdil, notice that the fall of the Moorish Empire specifically coincided with what Brother Sharif said, the age of discovery, when the Europeans were able to sail the seven seas, if you be able to quote unquote so-called discover these new lands. They weren't new to us. They were new to the Europeans. That's why they were saying they things. And the Moors were up and down the Atlantic Ocean, back and forward, up and down the Mississippi River, in Mexico, and so on and so forth. So, you know, with that this so-called discovery was an outgrowth of this Reconquista or Reconquista under the Roman Catholic. Have to realize that the marriage between those two were very important. Galvanized the European nations, or that particular European nation, power and the authority of the Catholic Church. And you have to realize these kings, we started off talking about Christianity. These kings didn't rule. These kings rule by a right of the authority of the papal powers of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, with that being said, picked them out. They did all of these. You alluded to, brother, that the Moors had done in this regard to the European nations, and that we suffer sin and slavery based upon the decadence that we allow our empire to come after the gods of Europe, if you will, and we started straying after them all. You know, with that being said, more when these people came into power, basically, what ended up happening is they was like, we ain't gonna never, ever, ever let these people get back on top of us again for a very, very long time. So what they did was they set out looking for all of the ways in which they can get into the interior of Africa, or get into in Africa to start enslaving the people on the continent. And that being said, they were trying to make. I read from this particular book right here, and I'm just going to break it out. I can get the book. It's called the Unknown Arabs by Brother Tariq Berry. And in this particular book, you know, the brother, when the Europeans were coming to the shores, they still had vestiges of brothers in the Moorish Empire, or Moors, who were basically pushing back these Portuguese raiders, if you will, who were grabbing quote unquote human cargo. And I won't delay the time, but if you want to find out about that, read this book, because I want to get to some other things. It's called The Unknown Arabs. I talked about that a few shows ago. But I also wanted to go to what the brother said in this particular book called Nature Knows No Color Line. And I guarantee you, if you go read this book and grab this book, you'll be running to the nearest Moorish Science Temple of America to take out your North.
And nationality card. Brother, you breaking up a little bit, but I got you. Come on, let's go.
Islam, more yeah, can you hear me clear?
I can hear you, but you breaking up, and you sound like T-Pain a little bit.
Oh, Islam. Yeah, more. With that being said, I'm gonna read from this book, and then I think I'm gonna change channels if I keep getting disturbance. And I just hang up and I'll come back on. But I want to read this real quick, if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
And you know, basically, as Brother Sharif Bey and yourself was talking about, this was a universal onslaught, not just about people in the sub-Saharan region, but this was a war against Africans all around the planet Earth. And that's why Noble Drew Ali's documentation in that regard in the back of the Holy Quran in the Moorish Science Temple of America is so important, because he talks about this transatlantic relation between the people on the continent of Africa and those in America, like what Brother Sharif is talking about. But let me get to this real quickly. You know, for the people who try to discount the Moors, and in regard to our topic, if you go to page 53 of Nature Knows No Color Line, in regards to the terminology of Moor, J.A. Rogers have this to say. He says the Romans took that name from the Greeks, who took it. Later, quote unquote, Moor seems to have come into fashion. This Turkic word imported into the Greek to describe quote unquote black people, that is Moros or black. The word Mauritania in Greek meant quote unquote black, says Harper. And you know, with that being said, Jay Rogers backed this up. You know about of Jay Bryant, the analysis of ancient Egypt, ancient mythology, and also by Gerald Massey's Book of Beginnings, page 588. And you know, that goes to show you that we have in this book where, you know, the word Moor in itself wasn't made up by the Europeans. This was a word, quote unquote, Moor, that was imported from Africa, from the Africans, the Moors, into the Grecian language. And the Romans inherited that word Moor from the Greeks. So, you know, with that being said, I just want to go to another record in that regard. If I have this page out in Ivan Van Sertima's work in that regard, he goes on to talk about that, and I want to relate this to Western Africa. And I'll stand down, but the brother Wayne Chandler says in this book, I want to make sure y'all hear me. Y'all can still hear me more, or am I coming through choppy? Islam?
Yeah, I can hear you coming in a little choppy, but I can hear you all right. I'm looking at the chat, and I'm making sure the people getting it. So you okay so far? You good, my brother?
Praise Allah. So with that being said, in Wayne Chandler's article entitled "The Moor Light of Europe's Dark Age," Chandler goes down to break, you know, the beginning chapters. I mean, the beginning paragraphs. He's breaking down the same thing that our prophet said in regard to old man Cush and Ham going into the interior of Africa, if you will. But I'm going to read what the brother says at the last paragraph. Although the term Moor has been put to diverse use, its roots are still traceable. Circa 46 BC, the Roman army entered, where they encountered black Africans, which they call Moors, and they have it spelled M-A-U-R-E-S, quote unquote. And from the Greek adjective Moros, meaning dark or black. The country of the Moors, Mauritania, not to be confused with the Islamic Republic of Mauritania in the present day West Africa, although obviously the root is the same, existed in what is now northern Morocco and western Algeria. The Greeks themselves, approaching from the east in search of Egypt, called the black Africans they encountered there Ethiops, from the Greek word Athenian, to burn, and ops, meaning face. Now we know that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali went on to correct the whole demonstration upon what Ethiopia in regard to the demarcation line between the fall and if you remember what I just read about when the Roman army went into Western Africa, they called the people that they went into West Africa Moors, a term which J.A. Rogers said that the Romans got from the Greeks, who the Greeks themselves got from the Africans. So that is part one to driving home the truth in regard to the fact that these particular Moors were slated for slavery. And what you have going on here, more to be all honest, in all honesty, and not speaking radical in regards to these groups, what you have simultaneous respects is a race war in the ancient world. See, people,
Brother, you broke up real bad that time.
Islam?
Yeah, you breaking up real bad. Okay, I hear you now.
So basically what we have in that regard is really a race war going on long before the transatlantic slave trade. And that's what people really do not understand. And it was between us and the Roman Empire. You follow what I'm saying? It was between us and the Roman Empire. And when Jesus came on the scene, Jesus broke the power. He broke the power of the Roman Empire. You follow? And the Nazarites that people call Christians, the original followers of Jesus, although under the subjugation of the Roman Empire, basically started to draw out of the Roman Empire and converting people to the Nazarene teaching. So you had people who really didn't have an adherence to the Roman Empire. Guess what? They couldn't collect taxes. So that's why they were persecuting.
Oh my goodness, brother. Hold up. I think you might have to restart. You went way too left that time. Let me see. And somebody said you was chopping up. Nevertheless, Brother Sharif, let's see if he can check that real quick. Brother, I want to keep on with that thought though.
Yes, sir.
I want to keep on with that thought. Brother, Grimion Hill, see if you can test it up a little bit. Was you following him, Brother Sharif? I know you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, great. So let's see where we at now. Matter of fact, while he's making some adjustments, see if he can make some adjustments. In the chat, let's address this real quick because our time is flowing pretty fast. In the chat, somebody want to say that Europeans created the term Moor. You know we've heard that. You know we heard that a million times. Okay. We'll get back into the show. Brother Grimion, Brother Grimion, brother, because he was on that thought. We'll get back to that, brother.
Islam. My apologies, Mo. I don't know what's going on today, Mo. I guess some people don't want me and Brother Sharif to get into this or want us to get into this degree. But basically, Mo, what I was saying was that there was a race war and a religious war, and basically these Nazarenes were part of the reason of breaking the foundation of the Roman Empire. And that's why they were killing them and persecuting them long after the death of Brother Jesus, or Brother Justice, if you will. And they couldn't collect taxes. So the only way to basically try to turn the tides, if you will, of the whole thing in regard to Christianity was basically to inculcate it into the Roman Empire. So for all intents and purposes, the reason why I'm saying all of this about the battle between the Romans and the Moors, or the Muslims and the Roman Empire, if you will, the Catholic Church, or the Roman Catholic Church, is nothing more than the rebirth of the Roman Empire on the Christian throne. And that's why I basically read that. So you have these Roman soldiers and these different people making their incursions into Northern Africa as a continuation of that war. And then, you know, more, it's just like you and I wanted to remind you about the conversation that we had, you know, yesterday in that regard. See, people just think that, you know, and I hope there's no children watching, because I'm gonna say something real quick if you want to get the children out the room in regard to male-female relations. And basically, like your anti-miscegenation laws or your anti-marriage laws, is if you will, in regards to the Europeans, women not marrying or mating with the Asiatic male or the Moorish male. Basically, that is an outgrowth of the sexual relations of the Moors in regard to what was going on not only in Moorish Spain or in Spain, but also in the Roman Empire itself. And just give me 1 second to get back to this this particular demonstration in that regard, that that says that how it was very important, and you know, it basically shows that the European women were choosing Moors as mates. Even the married European women were having salacious relationships with the Moors that the Roman soldiers, I mean, you know, the Roman soldiers were bringing their families into Northern Africa, and the European women was having sexual relations with the Moors on the shores of North Africa. I'm going to read this demo. Unions, licit and illicit, between white and blacks were as free in Rome as it is in Europe of our time. Always and everywhere, says Tenny Frank, a large part of that ore that furnished the material for race mixtures was the Oriental. A considerable part of the latter was the Negro. I'm not using these terms. These terms are in the record. Carcopino says, thus, we find in the best families a veritable crossbreeding like that which other slaveholding people have more recently submitted. Babylon says lawful marriages took place between Romans and quote-unquote Ethiopians. So in this record, when they using the word Ethiopian, they are basically in Mauritania or Morocco. So the real word in which they are using, or should be using rather, is Moor. And it goes on to say St. Jerome in his famous 22nd epistle mentions the marriage of Romans to Ethiopians. According to Juvenal and marital adultery of Roman matrons with Negroes was common. Juvenal advised the husbands not to take abortive portions. Y'all hear me more?
That's loud.
For from their wives, grieve not at this, poor wretch, he says, and with thine own hand give thy wife the potion, whatever it be, for did she choose to bear her leaping children in the womb, thou wouldest perchance become the sire of an Ethiopian, a blackamoor, or would soon be the sole heir. So basically, what we having is this sexual relation thing that has become a problem. And that is the origin, really, of the Europeans in regard to this this whole thing that we talking about as far as the enslavement of the Moors. And they want to make sure that none of this stuff ever happened again. It wasn't just about the size of the private part and all of that was a byproduct. But what they were basically trying to prevent is that whole demonstration about the sexual relations between the Moors and the Europeans. So, and another sad part about it, Well, I'm not going to say the sad part about it, but really the part about it is we know that our prophet is so deep, he basically knew portions of the problem. So he went on to codify in his record. He said, we as a clean and a pure nation do not desire to amalgamate with the pale-skinned nations of Europe. So, you know, with that, I don't want to take up too much time. So I'm going to stand down to you and my brother Sharif. And if y'all come back to me, I'll have some other demonstrations to have in that regard.
Islam. I see my brother Sharif. He already took the petition down. He's ready to go. Sharif, let it go, brother.
Yes, sir. I want to camelback off for that, man. Especially, I mean, he touched on the so-called taboo subject. You know, everybody, you know, a lot of detractors want to throw at the Moors. Oh, well, the Moors like white women and blah, 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 blah. Understand, too, that what we're dealing with here, as the brother was talking about with the amalgamation or the race mixing or whatever, was a direct outgrowth of our, and when I say our, remember the Moors at that time were an African diaspora, not some small group of so-called African traders, as these other people would like to say. It was a large diasporic African empire, and we engaged in a whole bunch of things, just like other African nations on African soil did. And one of those things was slavery. That's what we engaged in. We engaged in it just like every other African nation did. But one of the things about us as the Moors during the Moroccan Empire is that we did it throughout the known civilized world at that time. Why? Because we ruled the known civilized world. Let me share this screen with you all, people.
Screen
real quick. Where is it at? Hold on. Where we at? Y'all with me? Y'all still there?
Yes, sir. Come on, brother.
Yes, sir. I'm trying to share this screen. The screen cancel. Let me try it again real quick. There we go. There we go. You want to know why the even to this day in 2016, the European through fear and loathing still goes out of his way to keep his boot on the back of your neck? You're looking at it right here. You're looking at it right here. We're not proud in any shape, form, or fashion. We're not proud of the amalgamation that Moorish rulers had with European women, but they were commodities. We're just telling the truth. We're not speaking radical. They were commodities of our slave trade. See, this is the part that even our detractors, for some reason, don't like to talk about. They don't like to talk about what the European knows very well, but the European is ashamed to speak about. But he speaks about it in secret and in private because it fuels his anger, fear, and hatred of us today. All right? Look at this book by Gilles Milton called White Gold. This book contains the actual autobiography or the actual story of an eyewitness an eyewitness and a victim of European slavery under the Moroccan Empire. See, in other words, what happened to us, they call it turnabout. Turnabout is fair play. We did it to them first. It's just that simple. We did it to them. Get this book, Diplomatic Relations of the United States and the Barbary Powers from 1776 to 1816 by Ray Irwin. I'm going to read this real quick. By the middle of the 16th century, corsairs, those are Moorish ships, were raiding as far north as the Straits of Dover, snatching captives from the very shores of the British Isles. In the course of 3 centuries, it was estimated that the Algerines, as in Algiers, alone captured 600,000 slaves, while as late as 1798, a Tunisian foray carried nearly 1,000 people off a small Italian island, completely depopulating it. The insolence of these piratical states, fostered by an almost unaccountable submission to their pretensions by the Christian nations of Europe, has been strikingly exhibited in the conduct of the Bey of Algiers towards Captain Bainbridge on his arrival there in the frigate George Washington with the annual tribute. Let me stop right there. The annual tribute. meaning the United States at this time period was paying tribute to the Bay of Algiers and also the Bay of Morocco. As a matter of fact, that is where we get the phrase blackmail from, because it was the tribute money that the European Christian nations were being forced to pay to your forefathers and our forefathers. It was called blackmail. The Bay replied to Captain Bainbridge, "You pay me tribute, by which you become my slaves, and therefore I have the right to order you as I think proper." All of the tributary nations of Europe submitted, so he added to render him like services. The first of the Barbary states is Morocco. The Berbers were the oldest inhabitants of the country, and the Moors were the descendants of those who had left Spain. And this is just what it is, people. This is just what it is. And another piece I'll add to my brother Grimion Ill with the intermixing, why the Europeans sought the intermixing. Why they sought the intermixing was because during this time period, and even today, with royal families and the like, pedigree is everything. Pedigree is everything. And so the Moors were ruling, which is why the Europeans sought to infiltrate. And that's what it was. We are not proud of that, which is why the brother quoted our prophet, and I'll quote him again. He said in chapter 48 of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, "We as a clean and pure nation descended from the inhabitants of Africa do not desire to amalgamate or marry into the pale-skinned nations of Europe, neither serve the gods of their religion." Peace.
Peace, peace, peace. You know what's funny to me, brother? I'm looking at the chat, right? And a few people, they got this thing about them that kills me figuratively, because you really don't bother me, but figuratively it kills me. Where the Moors sold us into slavery. Let's take that narrative for a minute.
Right.
If you are descendants of slaves of Africa,
right,
their brothers, whether they were called Moors or whether they were called by their tribal names, participated in the slave trade. They're your people too.
Correct.
You don't have to accept the term Moor.
Correct.
The same people that were sold are of the same people that participated.
Let me add this too, brother. Let me add this too to shed more light on the blatant expression of ignorance. You are here, by and large, according to most so-called conscious people, you are here in America, by and large, as a result of the transatlantic slave trade.
That's right.
We have demonstrated conclusively that the transatlantic slave trade was directed at the Moors by the Catholic Church. What does that make you? Regardless of what you want to call yourself today, what does that make you if the foundation and the basis of the transatlantic slave trade was targeted as a crusade against Moors in Africa? And you came here by way of the transatlantic slave trade. What does that make you, people? Like, it's really, really simple.
And you know what's funny to me? Like, we can trace dope back to the 80s with Reaganomics. What they used to call it, Reaganomics, whatever they call it. We can chase the dope game back, the crack. We can trace it back. And then we see how they brought the crack in, and then it filtered out, and we sold crack to our own people, having people walk around like zombies, being born crack babies and all that. But we can't take the concept that Europeans started the slave trade, targeting Africans, Moors, and then the Moors seen a benefit in it for some crazy reason, and they participated in it. You sold crack in the 80s.
All that is myth. Like, for instance, people talk about the Moors where that whole thing of we sacked Timbuktu, the Moors sacked Timbuktu. Yep, sure did. Yep, absolutely. What they don't talk about is what drew the Moroccan Empire's attention, in 1591 to Timbuktu and to the Songhai Empire. what they were just fresh off the heels of beating the living daylights out of the Portuguese. Now, here's the question. If the Portuguese were the main purveyors of initiating the transatlantic slave trade, and you all say that the Moors were part of the transatlantic slave trade, what in the world were the Moors doing putting their foot in the backside of the Portuguese during that time period? Come on, man. What you all are thinking and what you all are espousing does not jive with actual history. It just doesn't. Like, come on.
What blows me away is how people want to separate themselves from the people. You know what I mean? What I mean, separate themselves, as if Moors are this alien group of people that came out of nowhere. And they say slaves come from northwest and southwestern shores of Africa. But the Moors, they did this and did that.
Right.
Somebody in the chat said the slaves came from West Africa. Okay.
So the Moors
but
too.
The Moors are race traders. What is wrong with you? Do you see that the illness?
You're crazy. Let's talk about it. Battle of Tundibi, 1591. And see, in the explanation and the shedding light on ignorance, we're also going to explain a couple things that a lot of people don't know, that they don't factor into this thing. Since they don't know about nationality or what nationality is, then they're not looking at a political affiliation, which they should. And that's the big piece that they don't understand. Therefore, they're looking at ancient times with their limited modern vision, and think that people in those times were designated or divided or categorized by the same color code definitions that the European gave you today and that you live by today. They didn't exist back then. So let's talk about it. 1591, the Battle of Tundibi, is when the Moroccan Empire went and disrupted the Songhai Empire. Let's talk about it. The Songhai Empire. Number one, there is no such thing as a Songhai language. Follow me on this, people. There's no such thing as a Songhai language, number one. Number two, there is no such thing as a Songhai culture per se. What was the Songhai Empire? See, you all say the name empire. You say the name Songhai Empire, but don't understand what imperialism is. You're still thinking like a tribe or an ethnicity. When an empire is a confederation of nation states, kingdoms, and tribes. That's what it is. So when the Battle of Tundibi went down, all of that was under the control of the Moroccan Empire anyway. It was one Islamic African nation against another Islamic African nation within the empire. That's what it was. Now, what happened to the Songhai Empire when Timbuktu was sacked? The Songhai Empire was disrupted, meaning it no longer existed as a confederation of tribes. What happened? The tribes separated and reverted back to being individual tribes. There was no more union called the Songhai Empire, people. It's just that simple. Educate yourself on imperialism, specifically African imperialism.
Islam, that's right.
African imperialism, colonial. It's simple. Good grief.
Your mic, give me out.
Oh, sorry. Islam, I'm here, brother, man.
You good, Brother Sharif?
Yes, sir.
Okay, come on. Keep going, bro.
My bad, Mo. I thought you was done. If you wasn't done, I'll stand down.
Sir, I'm done.
Islam, Mo. Praise Allah.
Brother, we have a chat room. It's looking good. We got the viewers going. Come on with it, brother. Let's teach the people.
Praise Allah, Mo. Basically, Mo, I just wanted to, in that regard, I wanted to follow up on Brother Sharif in that regard, being that, we talking about why were the Moors targeted for slavery. And I want to read from another record. Mine is kind of toe up. It survived Hurricane Katrina, so that's all messed up. So, I just want to read from this particular book by Jack D. Forbes, entitled Africans and Native Americans. And I mean, you can see the cover, and you can see these different, Moors, you know, of South American origin, or those in South America, you know, that we term Moors today. You can see that demonstration. But, you know, I just want to read something from this particular book in regards to proving that all of these people that are in the chat group that are complaining about what the Moors did, or whatever, you are the descendants of the actual Moors that were enslaved. You are Moor. And basically, here we go. I'm reading from page 26 in that regard, proving to you all that you all were the people that came from these Muslim or more Moorish or Mohammedan populations. Between 1243 and 1296, we talking a long time ago. We talking about before this whole demonstration in regards to what we talking about, the transatlantic slave trade. So this stuff been going on for a minute. 1243 and 1296, of 50 slaves listed in Barcelona, 18% were Lores, 10% were quote unquote black, 20% were quote unquote Saracen, and only 52% were blonde. So basically, what you're saying is that they have first, it started off with this whole context of these people that they call Slavs, if you will, or these Europeans, because as you all know, that this word that we have that we use today that's called slave or slavery has its root in the word Slav, showing that the Europeans themselves and the Moors were taking this particular group of Europeans that were called Slavs and forcing them into servitude. And that's where we get the word slavery from. And that's not no pseudo. Just go ahead and look it up. And check this out. In 1266 and 1271, several alivastras are olive colored. 1266 to 1271, several alivastras, olive colored slaves were sold in Genoa, while 48 slaves named between 1401 and 1499 in that city, 25 were Elbe. So basically, it's showing how the tide is basically turning between the percentage of these European people who were held in captivity, and the tide is starting to change to where more of these alivastres were olive colored people were being and more becoming held in slavery. In Portugal, slaves of Muslim background were present in the 13th century, along with some who were Mocarabes, Christians who lived in an Arab fashion. During the 14th century, Portuguese vessels began to raid the Canary Islands, and many of the Canarios were introduced as captives along with additional Muslims. So y'all ancestors were these Muslims that these Europeans began capturing and putting into slavery. And in the 15th century, Berber, black, Senegalese, Wolof slaves became common, especially after 1440 to 1450. During certain periods, the term Saraceni was synonymous with servi or captive, slave or captive. Moros or Moor corresponded to a free or a slave Muslim, while later slaves were known as Negro. So I'm going to switch from this demonstration right here to go back to the record in regards to what this brother Jay Rogers was saying in that regard. As the Christian Spain and Portugal, Negroes were imported from the droves from 1440. So this is coinciding with what Jack D. Forbes said in Africans and Native Americans. As regards Christian Spain and Portugal, quote unquote, Negroes were imported in droves from 1440 until the abolition of slavery in Portugal in 1773. So these are your Muslim ancestors they snatching up. Already before the discovery of America, says Fernando Ortiz, several thousand quote-unquote Negro slaves had been expatriated from Senegal, Guinea, and the Congo, were working in Lisbon and El Galvarez, in Seville, and in all Andalusia. Brother Sharif touched on the thing about the Catholic sovereigns. The Catholic sovereigns were dealers in Negro slaves. It was Christopher Columbus who went plundering in Negro slaves in Guinea before stealing Indian slaves in Cuba. Before the discovery of America, the Negroes were cutting sugarcane in Andalusia, and in Seville, there was a municipal council of native Negroes with fraternal orders, kings, and overseers. The Negro came first to the Indies from Spain. You heard that? The Negro came first from the Indies from Spain. So basically, these are the casualties of war between the Catholic sovereigns following up on the powers of Isabel, Ferdinand. So I'll just continue reading. The Negro came first from Indies in Spain and not from Africa. So these is captive Moors that they had enslaved in Europe that are bringing over to the West Indies. Casualties of the loss of the Moors in Spain. As El Chuna said of Brazil, the mulatto was not made in America. He came to us already from the mother country. So basically, they import these Moors and these mixtures that we talked about earlier. We just got to face the facts. The American Negro slave trade was more abundant during the 15th and 16th centuries for the peninsula than for America. In one city like Evora, Portugal, the Negroes undeniably exceeded the whites. Several thousands Wolof, Mandinga, Guinea, and Congo slaves entered Lisbon. So I'm going to start right there and stand down in that regard. And I'm going to just say how these people are all of these different names of these different African people. We are one universal family of Moors, of the same race of people. And I think that it's disingenuous for some of these detractors in these groups that follow us around to cause trouble, if you will, to try to make it look like these people are different. All of these people are universal family for the most part under the Muslim faith of Islam. And I'll stand down from there.
Brother Sharif. We're going to bring this to a close real quick. We got a few questions, but Brother Sharif, take it away real quick before I get these questions handed out. I'm looking for some people to send some questions real quick, and then we'll go from there. So Brother Sharif, take it, and I'm going to jot down a few questions if they come through the chat. I'm about to ask if they have any questions because I think we hit everything out of the park from beginning to end. You and Brother Grimmy RL, like, what do you say after what y'all just said? What do you say? Like, what do you really say? Only thing someone can do now is go back, review the tape. Like my man say, what's my man, the battle rapper, Loaded Luck say? I kept the file. Pull the file up, go back over it, double check it. Don't be antagonist. Try to learn something, research it, and then come back. We'll be back on Sunday. Come back. You can email me at taharkabay@yahoo.com. See, Moorish World TV, we're trying to teach, we're trying to elevate. Not only are we trying to do that, we're trying to organize boots on the ground so we can realize our salvation in real time. We're talking about food, clothes, shelters, and the finer things in life. Period, point blank. But with that, Brother Sharif, come on, brother.
Yes, sir. See, I mean, what the brother just shared is powerful, and a lot of this, again, it's very, very simple. We could show you by name, black and white, that the whole transatlantic slave trade was a crusade against Moors. So the mere fact that you are here, descendant of African slaves, is a result of the war of European Christendom against your forefathers, the Moors. It's that simple. Any attempt to skirt that or deny it, makes you scholastically the odd man out, because no one in academia that's worth their salt denies this. It's just that simple. So you call yourself what you want to call yourself. That's fine. I don't argue that. We're all the same people. We are all inhabitants or descendants from the inhabitants of Africa. That is the fact. We are also, in that respect, we are Africans. But make no mistake, our forefathers were divided into nations and tribes since time immemorial. There has never been a time where all the people on the African continent were all one unified people, speaking the same language, having the same culture, ... There's no such thing as a singular African culture. No such thing. It's just that simple. We've always been nations and tribes. We founded the concept of nationality, nations and
Yes.
tribes.
Yes.
We founded it. Face it, people. If you don't know nothing about it, learn about it. It's what your forefathers and mothers taught and used to civilize the world with. Don't get mad at us when we talk about nationality. It's yours and mine. It's the science of social organization that we taught the world.
Social organ.
All right, so let's move.
Ooh.
I'm gonna get back on where is it at? I want to bring up this slide again. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Get this book, Barbarian Crew,
Crazy.
An Eyewitness Account of White Slavery Under the Moors by Francis Brooks. I want to quote one part, the second paragraph. Most estimates based on the size of the Moorish cities indicate that by 1780, at least 1.2 million Europeans had been seized. This remarkable book, first published in 1693, contains one of the few genuine eyewitness accounts written by a white slave who managed to escape. Its graphic description of the lot of white slaves, the Moorish relations with the Jews of North Africa, and the conditions of the time and the author's eventual escape casts a dramatic and nowadays oft hidden light upon the time when whites were enslaved. Now, why is this important? This is important for a number of reasons. Today, we know that the KKK long infiltrated police organizations nationwide. We know that the KKK is organized based on an ideology, on an ethos. We know that. What is that ideology? Do some reading. Do some reading on some real so-called Black history, specifically Reconstruction time. During Reconstruction time, when our people ran the South politically, the KKK emerged after the Compromise of 1877 to break the political power of our people in America. Once that political power was broken, we had no protection under the law, and they could murder you outright. And that's when the takeover of Asiatic cities, or so-called Black cities in the South, ensued. Right on up to Rosewood in 1923. You see what I'm saying? That's what happened. And that was the sole purpose of the KKK, was to break the political power by violence, intimidation, and everything else. But it was to break the political power and to prevent that political power from rising again. Now, I want you to Google the letter that J.B. Stoner in the 1970s sent to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad of the Nation of Islam, where he literally says, he was the Grand Dragon of the KKK at the time, and J.B. Stoner literally agrees with everything we presented here today. He literally said that Islam is ours. Our people said it's the word he used the N-word. He said it's the N-word religion. That's what he said. Now, the fact is, this whole white slavery thing is the knowledge that they keep somewhat hidden, and it's what fuels them today. The very things. See, only the Moors, people, I'm sorry. Only the Moors can specifically explain why we are going through what we're going through with the European here in America. It's this history right here. But the whole thing is they don't talk about it, because to talk about it would admit that they were not always superior and that you were superior at one time. That's why they don't talk about it. They just act on it. And you're left with that because when you don't know this history, you're left with the emotional fallback of, oh, they just hate us. Oh, they're just haters. They're just evil. You know what I'm saying? When the fact of the matter, I'm not saying that they're not, but the fact of the matter is that you've been missing a key component of your own history that explains it and understand.
That's right.
Peace.
Right. That's right.
You know what? Before you really out there, to me, you know what stands out to me. What really stands out to me is what type of work that was done on us. Like, why are we so afraid to be who we are? Say hypothetically speaking, that's not who we are. Hypothetically speaking. But let's just study the history of the Moors. Wouldn't we have to agree that the Moors did civilize Spain? They fell off, got knocked off, got expelled. However, wouldn't we have to agree that the Moors did some things in Sicily, Italy? Wouldn't we have to agree that the Moors went around conquering everywhere they went to civilize peninsula, landmass, everywhere they went? No history records that. Now, just say if we weren't Moors, isn't that a great history to attach yourself to? Now, the point that I'm making is that we definitely are Moors without a doubt of contradiction. But what type of work has been done on our mind that we want to fight so hard to separate ourselves from something that is great? What type of work has been done on our mind that we can't even acknowledge that we have did more great things within the paradigm of being Moors than destructive things?
Mo, it's interesting
what
because
happened to our mind? Come on, brother.
The conscious community in general will talk about, yes, we were kings and queens. We were kings and queens. We were kings and queens, right? But when the Moors say, yeah, we ruled all of Spain and Europe and we were kings and queens, and all of a sudden it's taboo now. You know, now all of a sudden we're race traders now. You know, like, okay, we introduced to the world mathematics and science and this, that, and the third. But then when we say, yes, we did introduce these things and we introduced them as custodians of the ancient Kemetic mystery system and ancient Egyptian culture, and that became the foundation of Western civilization, which you live in today, all of a sudden there's something wrong with that now. Like you said, brother, we're addressing a very real sickness. That's a sickness right there.
Like,
you know?
And the thing is we attack one another like a racist would attack us. We attack one another culture as if just like no different than a racist European would attack us. Like, say for instance, if I study African culture and I found out that some of my people that they lived with loincloths and they ate monkeys, you know what I mean? I'm not attacking them. They my brother.
Exactly.
Why do we have this sickness that we must attack one another to the level that is sickening, and we don't even look at the properties that could enter our mind and advance us and awaken us and make us better people?
There you go.
This is a real sickness right here. Brother Grimion, carry on for me, my brother. And then I'm going to ask these 3 questions, one for each of us, you know, from the chat. Because they didn't give me a bunch of questions. They just made me mad with all of this stuff coming at the board. Come on.
Right. Islam more, I mean, at this point, more just from, you know, these shows, you know, and I like to thank you for having the Moorish World Forum, you know, for us to sound off, because, I mean, a lot of this stuff, man, we just basically, you know, beating a dead horse. And these people are always going to come at us and, you know, with respect to them, you can just see like some of the comments. You know, it's mostly good comments in the chat. I'm happy and I'm proud for that. But some of these people just go come at us regardless. But, you know, I just want to give everybody a context. You know, as Brother Sharif was talking, you know, he puts. I hope everybody can see this demonstration. But this map, and I don't know. Can you brother see that map? I apologize for not having a PowerPoint slide.
You
I
good,
didn't
my
really.
brother.
Yeah, but as you see that map, you can see where what is the quote unquote El Moravid or the Morabitum or the Moabites. You can see the El Moravid territories and all of the different territories of Northwest Africa and Northeast Africa and how all of that relates. And remember, our prophet said that they formed themselves kingdoms of Morocco, Algiers, Tunis, etc., etc. And you see this map, you know, on the four reaches of Western Africa, it shows the El Moravid territory. So we all family. And at some point, yeah, you know, we were fighting against each other. That's just human nature. And everybody, and I would like want to follow up what Sharif made an excellent point. You know, these people act like the ancient world before the European boat pulled up on the African shores. It wasn't a hell, but you know, it wasn't this utopian either, where they had, you know, our brothers and sisters skipping up and down the beach and having a good time, and these evil Europeans showed up and start slapping chains on these noble quote unquote savages. And you know, if you go with that concept, you basically going with quote unquote European psychology or white supremacy. And you know, I just want to follow up on the thing about what the brother was saying about J.B. Stoner in the Ku Klux Klan. And you know, I have a book that I want to read from that is basically follow up on this demonstration. And you know, this is in possession of all the European Masons, all of the and I'm not speaking any radical against any organized group, but this book is in the hands of all of these Ku Klux Klan and these supremacist group, because they know who you are and they basically study this particular record. And I'm about to read to you some of the things, you know, in that regard. And if you just give me you know, one second, my brother.
How are your biz, my brother?
Basically, I'll just start off in what this brother was saying in regard. He said, well, he's not a brother, but he said, I should transport myself for this purpose to an epoch sufficiently remote from this in which we are living. Now, this book was written in 1748, I believe. Sufficiently remote from this in which we are living, and fortify my mental vision, which a long prejudice may have weakened. I shall fix across the obscurity of centuries the moment when the white race, of which we are a part, came to appear upon the scene. So this man telling the history of the white race. And you know, I believe that this demo is the basically the origin of the Yaqub story, but I'm not gonna get into that. At this epic of which I shall seek later to determine the date, the white race was still weak, savage, without laws, without arts, without cultivation of any sorts, destitute of memories, and too devoid of understanding even to conceive a hope. It inhabited the environs of the boreal pole. I'll stop right there and just say, I'm not speaking radical. I'm not speaking racism. I'm just basically speaking from this particular record that this European wrote. It inhabited the environs of the boreal poles where it had its origin. The black race, more ancient than the white, was dominant upon the earth and held the scepter of science and of power. It possessed all of Africa and a greater part of Asia, where it enslaved and restrained the white race. Some remnants of the red race had languished obscurely upon the summits of the highest mountains of America and had survived the horrible catastrophe which had just struck them. They referring to the quote-unquote sinking of the Atlantean continent. But with that being said, I just wanted to go back to something that I wanted to point out, you know, in that regard. And in this particular record, these people refer to the European race as the Boreans and the Asiatics as the Sudeans. And, you know, in regard to going back to this whole woman thing, but while as the Borean race was thus preparing itself for combat, that's what goes back to what I was saying, that there was this universal war between the Asiatics and the Romans, or quote unquote what the 102s called the children of Adam and Eve. But while as the Borean race was thus preparing itself for combat, the combat continued. The Sudeans profited by their advantages had advanced into the interior of the country. Fire and sword had opened for them routes through the forests, thereto impassable. They crossed the rivers with facility by means of bridges of boats, which they had understood how to build. In proportion as they advanced, they raised the inaccessible strongholds. The Boreans, or the Europeans, notwithstanding their number and their valor, could not hold out against these redoubtable enemies, referring to the Asiatics or the Sudeans. So far above them in their discipline, their tactics, and their difference in arms. If they tried to fall upon their enemies unaware or to surprise them under cover of night, they found them enclosed in fortified camps. I don't want to take up too much time, but I'm going to
real quick, my brother. They asking what book are you reading from?
More, I don't usually do this, but I'm not even at I'm not even at liberty to say at this time. I'm gonna just read from the record, more, if that's all right.
That's okay, brother.
Right.
Hopefully somebody takes a note. Google some words. It might come up.
Right. Right. And this goes back to this European female thing, and it answers the question, the age-old question of why the European treat his women in the way that they do. Now listen, I didn't mean to read all of that, but I wanted to get to the point that there was a war going on between the Asiatics and the Europeans. And basically it goes on to say, if they tried to fall upon their enemies unawares or to surprise them under cover of night, they found them enclosed in fortified camps. Everything betrayed this unfortunate race, talking about the Borean race or the Europeans, and seemed to conduct it to its absolute ruin. Even the women, now listen to this, even the women of the European Boreans abandoned them for their conquerors. So basically what you have, Moors, is that the European women once again abandoned her own man for the conquerors, which was the Asiatic Sudeans, or what eventually became to be known as the Moors. The first women who freed themselves, having learned the dialect, served the Sudeans as guides and showed them the most hidden retreats of their European Borean fathers and husbands. These unfortunate, surprised, surrounded, and on all sides cut off dexterously, thrown upon the banks of the rivers and driven back against the mountains, were obliged to surrender themselves or die in misery. And however, the Africans, already masters of a great part of the country, had the natural riches and explored it by their savants. But I'm gonna start right there, number one, because I'm losing my voice. But I just wanted to show how all of this stuff goes on in ancient times and how it's relate today. The Europeans just didn't place us in slavery and say, I'm gonna enact these laws. These are things that have been going on over a period of thousands and thousands of years between Asiatics and Europeans. Now, in come your noble Drew Ali on the scene. And to complete the cycle ages, and he came bringing again that comprehensive program of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, not only to teach us who we are, but to end the war, or the age-old war that had been going on amongst the Asiatics and Europeans by a comprehensive program of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And that's why the prophet came with the humble program to build and not to destroy, so we can rectify relations between us, the Europeans, and every other nation on this planet, so that we can bring in the age of peace from this age-old war. Islam. I'm sorry, brothers.
Islam, brother Sharif. Let's get this wrapped up, my brother. When we bring us to a close, for the simple fact is that I think we covered all bases. Actually, I think we touched on everything that was necessary to touch on. I think people need to go back and study the footage. And
can I say something real quick, bro?
Absolutely, brother. Come on.
I mean, there's so many things that we can say and talk about. One thing I wanted to touch on is definitions. Like, again, a lot of our people, first of all, we don't demonize the word black. I've said that many times. We don't demonize the word black. We don't demonize the adjective black as you know, to describe something. We don't do that at all. We know, let me repeat, we know that we are descendants of the inhabitants of Africa. We are an African people. We don't see ourselves as any different in identity than our brothers in the conscious community, the Pan-African community, the RBG community. As a matter of fact, unbeknownst to many of you, many of those brothers rock hard with us. We are not trying to proselytize and make them join the Moorish Science Temple of America. We ain't got to do that. Like the brother said on the brother show a few days ago, uniformity does not necessarily mean uniform. It's just that simple, people. Come on, man. If all the other nations of the world and other organizations can get it, why can't we? You ain't got to look like me or sound like me or talk like me for us to work together. But if we have common issues, and we have common principles, then there's no reason why we can't work together. It's just that simple. That being said, when we say Asiatic, we are not using the European imperialist definition of Asiatic, which means people that are not African. We are using the pre-colonial definition of Asiatic. Now, whether you agree with that or not is irrelevant. Just know that when we say Asiatic, we're talking about us. It's just that simple. Just know that. We know when you say black people, we are talking about us. And we ain't got no problem with that. We just don't agree with using the term to identify. Just know that. Now, back what you said, brother Tahaka Bay, you know, we covered so much here, and the most simplest of things that's just undeniable is that the transatlantic slave trade was a part of the crusade against the Moors. Now, what Brother Grimion Hill just explained with that powerful reading, he explained the history behind the European psychology that made it all right for Europeans to announce during church about a lynching happening at a park and to bring food and refreshments and watch men, European grown men, hang, torture, burn, and dismember one of our brothers, and then cut his genitals off and put them in jars. This is the history that makes the Europeans shudder, because you weren't supposed to know why they did that. You weren't supposed to know the historical piece. And that's why the brother said that the prophet came and broke the Roman seal, because you weren't supposed to know this. That seal was on us. In other words, a limit to our scope of knowledge about our own condition. And all you're left with is the emotional, or will they just hate us, without knowing the real reason behind the action. See, our prophet came to bring that. You ain't got to join the Moorish Science Temple of America to learn that. It's just that simple. But it's your information. It's your knowledge. Use it. Use it to your benefit. So if you abide by the principles based on this knowledge, then all is well. It's just that simple. All is well.
Islam, brother. Before we bring this to a close, I want to engage these three questions real quick. But I think the audience need to ask themselves, why in their heart do they go at the one that looks just like them so hard? I think they need to examine their heart. And I'm gonna say that, and on a serious note, the joke is a joke. Being sarcastic is one thing, but this thing runs deep. Let me tell y'all a quick story before I give it to Brimmy on here. Today, you know, any brother in Ali's, man, they know how busy I am. I know how busy they are. We chat throughout the day. Some days we can't catch each other, but we always converse and staying in contact. So I stay busy. Anyway, I get a call today that my uncle was doing pretty bad. You know, he had lost 30 pounds. He just wasn't doing well. Now, this is my uncle, literally Uncle Pete. He was the crazy uncle, so to say. So I say, well, I was helping my brother-in-law do something in between what I'm normally doing, and I rushed up there, go check him out. He looking pretty bad. So I called the paramedics and get him to the emergency room. So I followed the paramedics there. Listen to my point, people. When I get into the emergency room, I actually beat the ambulance there. And so I'm at the where you sign people in, and two beautiful sisters, one dark olive, if you want to say dark skin, and one light skin, light olive. Beautiful. One sister even had a wrap on her head, and that wrap do something to me. I'm gonna tell you now, Moorish American mouse to the bone, it do something to me. But both of them just look so mean, so frustrated. And because of my experience, I understand how the work environment can frustrate people. So I don't take it personal. So I walks in there. I said, how y'all doing? I said, listen, my uncle was just transported from Curtis Bay to the emergency room. And I'm just trying to give my name, because I'm trying to give my name and my number just so I can get home and do this show. And I know they're going to hold my uncle. He's in the hospital. He's going to be all right. Plus, I got faith in the law. Don't worry about that. Anyway, so I can rush home and do the show. So the sister with the wrap on her head, then the other sister had dreads. The sister with the wrap, she says, the ambulance comes in over there. I said, no, sis. I said, matter of fact, let me do this. I'm going to walk out, and I'm going to do this one more time. I literally spins around, walks out, come back in. I said, how y'all doing this evening? I said, my uncle was just transported. Same old story. I just want to be able to leave my name. She said, well, you can't do it until he check in. You can have a seat right there. So I'm sitting there. I'm watching the clock. You know, I don't mind if I have to go late, but I'm watching the clock. Come on, late, whatever. European old gentleman come in with his daughter. I'm talking about European. Come in. Hi, my dad, he's in need of treatment. Ma'am, you can sit him down right there. This is the sister with the wrap. You can sit him down right there. What is his name? She fits the type of immediately. The other sister, a Pakistani Muslim dress sister, she comes in, and immediately the sister with the dread say, ma'am, how can I help you? I am frustrated at this point. I am steaming because I'm seeing reverse racism being practiced by a manipulated mind that looks physically just like me, but the mind has been captured. And I'm sitting there frustrated. She don't know who I am. I got on some painted up Dickie pants and a dirty t-shirt. That's what I do. Anyway, she's sitting there being just as nice as her humble personality could be. One was a European, one was a Pakistani. I'm sitting there, then another Indian guy comes in and, hi, sir, Let me take your vitals. Matter of fact, you go there, I take your vitals. We have another person that I'm sitting there filming. Bottom line is this. When I step up to walk around, walk outside to see if the ambulance had came, and sure enough, it came. The paramedics, the assistant of the paramedics said, we have him here. I throw him, chuck him a deuce, throw him the piece, walk right back around. And when I come in, I'm filming. Now when I come in, there's 3 security guards there. Asiatics, so-called black, standing there. Now I already know what this is. That's okay. I'm about to show out. I can't take it. I'm sitting there. So she know that I'm mad. So now she's trying to get me out of there. So she says, well, he just came in, but he's not registered yet. It's going to take a while. But let me take your information. And once he's registered, I put it in the system. I got up and walked over to her, and I say, sister, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. I say, you just treated me like I was less than the European right there and the Pakistani right there. They're still standing there. I say, how can you be comfortable with that? I said, how can you sit there? I said, you too, sis. The security guard came over there and said that they're trying to register people. I said, I'm not talking to you right now. Talk to you in a minute. How can you sit there and feel comfortable with yourself by treating me one way and treating the European another way? She said, no, I only said, I said, now we're not going to go over this. You know what you did. I watched what you did, and you can feel what you did. I said, this is ridiculous. 2 more security come up there. I said, I don't know what y'all come here for, because I'm going to finish saying what I'm saying. I said, this is crazy that we have come to the point that when you see me, you feel all right. You feel comfortable to talk to me in such a manner that you would not talk to somebody else. But in particular, in this instance, a European. I give you that story to say this. This just happened right before the show came on. I give you this story because of this. When we say that we are Moors and we proclaim our nationality and we identify with Moors, why does it make you so angry? Why do you get so fueled up? Why can't you say, okay, I understand it like this. Help me understand it like that. I don't get that. I'm not with that, and move on. See, the same hatred that this sister pulled out of herself that allowed her to treat me like that, and in a split second was humble, calm, and passive to a European, is the same thing that I seen in this chat and that I have been seeing in this chat. I guarantee you, y'all go right there and punch that clock for that European and don't say nothing. I guarantee you, man. We have to.
That's right, Moore. Teach on it, Moore. That's right.
On ourselves, man.
That's right, Moore.
If you respect your mother in a certain way, respect your sister in that same way. If you respect your brother in a certain way, I'm talking about came out the same womb. Respect your brother that same way. See, because if you don't, the European has controlled your mind. He controls the horizontal and the vertical of your mind, and you can't get away from it. Anytime that you come out aggressively and negatively against your brother, whether he's in a loincloth, running up a tree, eating a monkey, or whether he's wearing a fez and civilizing society, and whether he fell off and didn't do things like he was supposed to do by not honoring the principles of his forefathers, anytime that you come into attack someone that looked like you have a serious dang problem. Period, point blank. So with that being said, I had to get that out. Now, brother Grivion L, this was a question in the chat, and I'm going to give it to you. This is the first one. The first question is this. I got it. It was targeted. It was for Brother Sharif. However, I'm going to give it to you, my brother. I'm going to give it to you. I tell you what, I'll give that one to Sharif. Okay. It says this. Did you hear about Vikings being Jacobians, Hebrews, would the Vikings be Moors too? That's the question. Did you get that? Give me on here.
Islam, or I have it. Could you repeat it one more time?
It says, did you hear about the Vikings being Jacobians of, I guess would be the Jacob tribe, Hebrews? Would the Vikings be Moors too?
I mean, it's an interesting question, and we can come at it at several ways. As far as they being called Hebrews, if they are of that line genealogy, I would say yes. However, them being called Moors, I would emphatically say yes, because the only thing you have to do is read Ancient and Modern Britons by David McRitchie, and it answers those questions. And I also have a book about Atlantean maritime exploration in that particular area of the world that brother is talking about. And it basically deals with those people being Moors, or the Vic Kings, or the Vikings, or whatever that individuals want to refer to them by. So I say emphatically yes, they very well possibly could be Hebrews. And notice that particular area too of the Anglo-Saxon British Isle, they, if I'm not mistaken, they refer to certain islands around there as the Hebrides, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, I would say emphatically yes on both questions, on the Hebrew question and also on the Moorish question.
Islam. I see somebody say Islam on the text, so that's good. Now let's get this last question. Brother Sharif, get your mic for me, brother here. I'm gonna get this last question for Brother Sharif, because I see Islam in the chat. Islam more. Great. Excellent. All right, that's what I like to see. Now, Brother Sharif, this one is for you, my brother. Sharif, salam, bro. Now, I don't know what this brother name is, because it's in Arabic, and maybe that's not his name. I don't know. Nevertheless, I don't even know if it's in there. Yeah, it's in Arabic. Anyway, are we saying that the Songhai Empire was actually encompassed? Was the Song Empire encompassed within the Moorish Empire under the jurisdiction politically of the Sultan of Morocco? Did you get that?
I got the question, brother. Let's talk about it. During the time period in question, which is 1591, the Battle of Tundibi, right? The Moors, now mind you, when we talk about political control, there's a number of ways political control happens. Sometimes it happens through family pedigree, through marriages or whatever. Sometimes it happens through economic control, educational control, and military control. In the case of the Songhai Empire, it was military control. The whole issue was over a silver mine that was within the Songhai dominions, or the dominions of the Songhai Empire, that the emperor or the Sultan of Morocco at the time wanted access to. Plain and simple. It was right after their coffers had been depleted from prosecuting the successful military campaign against the Portuguese. And so they ordered, notice what, let me use the words again. They ordered the rulers of Songhai to relinquish the mine. But before they could even get a response, they just acted on it militarily and took the mine. So I would say yes. But was it nice? No. But was it under the confines or under the authority of the Moroccan Empire? Yes. Was it nice? No, it was militarily. So there it is. But keep in mind, it wasn't some separate group of racially distinct Africans or non-Africans against another racially distinct group of Africans. That was not the case. It was two African, as we would say, dark olive to medium olive skin, since we want to talk about racial color designation. It was two equally hued African nations or African empires. That's what it was. And both were African and Islamic. And the Islamic, what's called the Islamic Empire, what some scholars call the Islamic Empire, is synonymous with the Moorish Empire, according to Budget Meakin, according to Stanley Lane Poole, according to Shaka Diop, and other scholars. Peace.
Peace. And the question for me, and I'm gonna try to answer this right. I think it's a brother in the chat name. I don't know, brother Curry. All I know is Curry. It says, "Are all Moors Muslims?" Let me say this from a historical point of view. We were Muslims by religious creed. Now, and principle. This is from time immemorial. When the label or title Muslim Islam came into existence, we had already been living that lifestyle. That's why it was so easy to relate to it. That's one aspect. Secondly, are all Moors Muslims? No. In today's world, no. Why? Matter of fact, we're about to do a show about that real soon. Moors and Moorish American Muslims, they are two different things. The Moor can be a Moorish American Muslim, but the Muslim can't be exclusively Moor. The Muslim have to be Muslim all the time. There's a conduct come with that. You see? Now, that's a conversation for another show that we're going to have. But let me tell you, we have Moors right now that do not have Muslim conduct is the point.
Right.
You seen them? They don't have Muslim conduct or principle. They'll cuss you out in a minute.
Right.
They call your mother a B if you get them mad on a Facebook post.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's not Muslim principle. You can never, ever show me where a brother in Ali's men ever, and I'm speaking for Ali's men because I'm not speaking from a temple podium at this point, but Ali's men ever stepped out of character as it relates to coming to attack somebody, to tear them apart over an intellectual disagreement. Never. So,
brother, can I speak to that real quick?
Come on, my brother.
You said religious creed. A lot of you, I know I'm preaching to the choir when I say a lot of the listeners and the viewers don't understand the difference between religion and religious creed.
Teach on it, brother. That's why I love this, brother. Come with it.
Let me give a quick example. That's why we said we're returning to church. The prophet said we're returning the church and Christianity back to the European nations as it was founded, right, by their forefathers for their earthly salvation, while we, the Moorish Americans, are returning to Islam as it was founded by our forefathers for our earthly and divine salvation. Now, let's talk about that. You know, Prophet Ali in chapter 46 of our Holy Quran says that the origin of Christianity is in Rome. Now, our people who follow Christianity, our idea of Christianity is not the same. It's not the same. If you ask our people, by and large, who follow Christianity, what Christianity is, they'll tell you it is the following the example of the man Jesus the Christ. Now, you ask Europeans, and if they're honest with you, knowing this history, what they will tell you is that Christianity, as they know it, was a socio-political ideology designed and crafted for European world dominance for the first time in history. That is what we mean by creed. In other words, you got a whole bunch of our people, here's an example, living in the hood, ain't never been to a church. Probably some of the greatest hellraisers, man, you ever seen, right? Probably some of the greatest hellraisers you ever seen. But what do they call Friday? Friday is the what? The beginning of the what? Weekend, right?
Mm.
What is the first day of the week? If you ask most people on impulse, they'll tell you Monday, when no, Sunday is the first day of the week, right? But why do they say Monday? They say Monday because Monday is the beginning of the work week. So the question is, now comes, from where do we get the idea of Friday being the beginning of the week's end, Saturday and Sunday being weekend, and Monday being the beginning of the work week? Where do we get that from? We get it from the 3 days, the 3 biblical or Christian days that Jesus lay in the grave, from Friday, Saturday, and then rose on Sunday. That is called religious creed, people. You are practicing Christianity. That's what you are doing, whether you've been in a church or not. These are the things we're talking about that we're giving up, that we're giving back to the European. That's why we say Friday is the holy day. That is an expression of us returning back to our creed. You understand? Because our creed invokes a psychology that breeds success for our people. This is why, regardless of whatever you want to think about Islam, or whatever European slave master taught you about Islam, this is the number one reason why the Europeans did their best to keep Islam from these shores and from our people, because they knew that it would mend the broken wires and reconnect the genetic history to our forefathers, and we would channel the deeds and accomplishments and the thoughts of our forefathers in the present day, and that would scare the living daylights out of the European.
Peace, peace. And with that being said, I want y'all to go check out, like I said, peace to my brother Sinet. I want y'all to go check out that video. I think his name Faraji. Faraji Salim, if I'm not mistaken. It's the latest video. The brother is a PhD, true bona fide PhD, speaks with a lot of common sense, a lot of clarity. And I usually don't do this, but I got to do it. There was an excellent show on Black News 102. They went live. Y'all need to check that out. I got it. Like I said, you know, I bust Sinet upside his head intellectually and crack jokes and all that when he goes sideways. But when he does something that is actually beneficial and uplifting, Moors, we honor that. We say we honor man. You see, we honor man, and honor man, we honor Allah, because we understand that in honoring man, we honor Allah, whether they choose to acknowledge Allah or not. You see, so that was an excellent show, and I think this was an even better show because we Moors. So watch this 3 or 4 times. And with that, I want to say peace and love, family. Family, we got to learn to love each other. We demonstrate so much hate that we think it's normal. We have to learn to love each other. And in closing, I want to say this before I sign off. We need to try harder to understand and less trying to be understood. Let me break it down to you. We need to try harder to understand one another instead of trying to force someone to understand us. Let's try to understand one another. Let me try to understand you. Let me try to understand why Black power means so much to you. And try to understand why Moorish American as a self-identification means so much to me. Try to understand. And maybe we can meet on Center Street and we can make our families better. Because when your child goes to the left, you can try to understand instead of react and lose your mind, which doesn't help the situation. Let's try to understand and put less of our energy in trying to be understood. Islam, peace and love, family. We see you on Sunday. We coming back again with another good one. I've got to go, and I love y'all for showing up and showing out. Brother Sharif, Islam, thank you. Brother Brother Vivian L, peace and love, thank you. And my brother Ali Bey, I see you in the chat. All my people in the chat, man, I love y'all, man. And we couldn't do this without y'all. I'm telling you, we started from the bottom, now we here. We had no followers at one time when we started doing this show. You know what I'm saying? We was doing shows because we had a problem with the misrepresentation of the Moors. And what we did was, we was like, man, hold up. I reached out to my brother after I did the Shaka video. I reached out to my brothers. I said, brother, we got to give people a clear representation of what Moors truly are. And I think we are doing a good job at that, and we appreciate you. We could not do it without y'all. So we appreciate y'all. We hope we see y'all back. And I'm just going to go out with this right here. I'm going to make some new music for y'all. You can best believe that. But I'm going to go out with this right here and just say peace and love. And I appreciate you. You know what I'm saying? So let's just hear this out. And let's support one another. Let's stop trying to beat up each other just because we don't see things alike. Man, within the African continent, man, we didn't see all things alike. Get over it. It's all right. Let's go, man. Peace and love. I ain't even gonna rap this. Peace, fam. You ain't never met a more like me, and you ain't never ever gonna meet one again. Let me be your friend. Peace and love. Let me be your friend. Peace and love. I said you ain't never met a more like me, and you ain't never ever gonna meet one again. I wanna be your friend. Peace and love. Now let me be your friend. Peace and love. Hey, yo, I used to be a thug until I met the prophet. Now I'm all about love, truth, peace, and freedom till I return to a law. One day we gon' meet him. I'm all about justice. That's the focus of the message. Sometimes Asiatics make me wanna forget the lessons. I be all up in my passion from all the Moorish passion. All things considered, I started laughing. A grown man with a ponytail. Another calling us Neanderthal. And he all pale. I mean, for real, this is what it comes to, my brother. We got nothing better to do than talk down to each other. Yeah, we can be scholarly or we can get gutter. We are the children of a father, and the rest of our mother has nursed us all. And first of all, we people while the king trying to murder us all. You need to chill, my brother. Tell the elder the same. Cause on my real, my man, I'm really about them things. I can take the feds off and go back in the low and return to the state where they used to call me dope. But no, I'm rolling with the prophet of Allah. What love, not war. Standing on that floor and I'm holding the square. The compass and the axe that might be too deep. Yo, let's not get off track. See, that prophet was an adapt. Do you know what that is? An Egyptian adapt. It's a brother who lived by the universal science developing the now. We call it Islamism, but it's the same, my child. Sit at the foot of a master. I bang you up, but I might have to bang you up. I still love you. And those that's talking that this ain't Islam, everything the prophet bought is in the Quran. All that other stuff, prostrate and cover up is just a start. And there's place to need the laws, the heart. You can dress like a protect, but you can dress like an herb. Why the Moorish American Bible unifies the word. You can say what you want about Dr. York, but he gave you different variations of the same thought. You won't appreciate that. You won't appreciate me. Appreciate the holy and divine duality. People refuse to admit it. We the first that ever did it. Europeans hope that the Moors would forget it. Cause we here, strong, alive and well, resurrected from hell, with a story to tell. So pay attention and listen and consider the fact. You know it's humanly impossible for you to be black. I guess the child of man is yellow, a Mexican is brown. Just think for a second how ridiculous it sounds. We can turn it around, but we must unite. It's okay to disagree, but we don't have to fight. Cause if we have to fight, you know how we get. I'm still learning to love, but I'm not there yet. So work with me, fam, and I'ma work with you. And let's all get together and do what we gotta do. Cause on the real side, we haven't made no progress since 1929. We got a European president, men married, men cycle, shooting up a club, don't see his own sin. And those that say they conscious that took your bucks, move straight to Hollywood, straight living it up. Y'all bigging it up, y'all cheesing and grinning. But it was your brain to help us set it off at the beginning. Be careful what you put in your soul, cause it'll blind you. Unfortunately, if people get paid, they disguise you. Oh yeah, I wanna be your friend. Peace and love, let me be your friend. Peace and love, I say you ain't never, and you ain't never, and you ain't never, ever. You ain't never met a more like this, and you ain't never, ever gonna meet one again. I wanna be your friend. Peace and love, let me be your friend. Peace and love, oh yeah. You ain't never met a more like this, and you ain't never, ever gonna meet one again. I wanna be your friend. Peace and love, I wanna be your friend. Peace and love, I wanna be your friend. I try to be your friend, baby.
Let me be your friend.
Sahaka Bay.
We ain't trying to be enemies.
Ali's men.
I want to be your, to let me be your,
I let me be your friend. Hey, yeah. 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 I love y'all. Peace and love, family. See y'all Sunday. I'm out.